I think that song sets the tone quite well. I mean, it's very kind of measured and held back, and it even opens with the line kind of whisper if you're in the wind. It's like it's kind of trying to draw the listener in. Like most of the songs on the record, it couldn't have been written without the benefit of experience, right? You know, I don't think, unless you've been to very kind of lonely, depressing places in your life, you can't really write with any authority about those things. And I've certainly been to those places, and I think the problem that you feel when you're there is, yeah, I'm the only one who's ever felt like this, there's no way out, you know. And I think that, and what's interesting, you know, particularly midlife, is that for a lot of people that ends up in kind of disaster. It's like, you know, the ultimate solution that people find for that is taking their own lives, and that does happen a lot, particularly with men of my age. You know, however you kind of choose to deal with that loneliness, I think the thing for me and the thing I've learned is that if you just hang tight and try and find a way through it, you will discover that it will end. I think my life for a long time was a series of huge highs and huge lows. I mean, it was exciting at times, but it was exhausting. And I think the thing that's happened to me as I've got older and happier and sober is that the curve is less pronounced, right? So the song is trying to reflect that, I suppose. You know, gone is the urge to steepen the curve of rise and fall. I don't want to kind of have those huge peaks and troughs anymore. What I've noticed, particularly again at this stage in life, is, but certainly in my 30s, the thing that actually drove me to therapy in the first place was an existential crisis, and the fear of death and the inexplicable mystery of being alive. And I had a massive existential crisis. But actually nowadays I sort of treat it a bit like an imposter. It's like you just cannot let yourself be kind of preoccupied with that stuff too much. It's damaging to ruminate on why you're here and the fact that at some point it's all going to end. You know, and so in a way the song's quite cheeky. I see it as quite playful. I kind of do, whenever people I know kind of sort of express kind of concern about death and their own mortality, I'm always quite kind of playful and tongue-in-cheek about it to them. And I think I just wanted to try and find a way of translating that into a song. We went for a kind of like a sort of John Martin, sort of Nick Drake sort of vibe with the music. And yes, I think it's a song about, like, I think when I was younger, I was very much driven by the goal of being a great success. I thought that was the answer to all life's problems. If I'm in a hugely successful band and have the adoration of fans and have money and material possessions, that'll fix what's wrong with me inside. And of course, my experience was that did none of that. In fact, it made it way worse. But the second half of the song and the choruses of the song are, yes, about saying, actually, life is much better when you just live spontaneously and you go where you feel the good energy is. And I think as you get older, you know what you like. Hopefully, you know yourself a bit better. And so kind of going with the flow becomes much easier and I think much happier way to live. I mean, what I think about Colourful Light is, like, people often ask me, would you rather have never been an addict or made the kind of mistakes you've made in that way? And I really strongly believe that I would rather have been an addict than not been an addict, if that makes sense. Yeah, because it gave me an experience that I would never have had otherwise, like a kind of, you know, obviously there were some very dark times, some extreme times, but it forced me to look at myself in a way that I never would have done otherwise. Yeah, I think the song tries to say that in quite a sort of poetic way. We are our experiences. We are, you know, we're the sum total of the things that we've been through in our lives, and you have to embrace all of that. I suppose that's what the song is saying. Well, I don't know whether this is the same for everyone, but I often feel, particularly as I've become more happy and settled in my life, there's a part of me that fears this sense of, like, at some point all the bad things I've done or all my kind of insecurities, or complexes, they're all going to kind of gang up on me at some point and just kind of hijack this life that I have. And of course that is a very real fear, and it is important, I think, to always keep acknowledging all those parts of your character that are less kind of desirable or whatever. And so the song is saying that, but also the end of the song is quite sort of melodramatic, but it's like it's sort of it's a story song, and at the end of that story it says suddenly all these things did come out of the woodwork, and they did kind of confront me, and I was able to handle it, and so again I suppose the song has a kind of happy ending in that. Well, it's actually quite an old song. It's probably a song I wrote nearly 10 years ago, and I remember it was towards the end of the Strangeland campaign with Keane, so 2012-13, and I had this idea on the piano, this kind of really beautiful melody, but I hadn't really, at that point, I really hadn't written any songs for a long, long time, and It's Over was like the first song I wrote when I said to the guys in Keane, I want to take some time out and work on some solo music. And yeah, it did coincide with Tim having problems in his marriage and that eventually breaking down. It didn't really fit the wave, but that's why I think every time you come to make a record, you do kind of trawl back through stuff and think, is there anything that might work for this album? And It's Over had that kind of delicacy, sort of beauty to it. I really love that song, and I've always wanted it to have a home, on a record. And I felt like, well, this is the one. I mean, in a way, it kind of says everything that I wanted to say about the album. It just like everything about it, and it's quite an unusual structure. It goes on quite an unusual journey sort of musically, but everything fell into place. It's one of those rare moments, it just all came out in one go really. And I just felt, wow, this, you just feel every now and then that you've lucked out with a song, and it felt very complete, and it felt like it described the particular journey that I was on or am going on at this point in my life. And again, I think it did set the tone in that regard, because I think there's a lot more kind of the sort of naturalistic, kind of more sort of traditional poetic imagery on the record in terms of the lyrics. And I think that song, again, it's very sparse, The image I had in my head when I was writing the song was like a kind of cowboy sort of on his own, out in the desert, sort of sitting around a campfire, kind of contemplating, looking at the stars, thinking, where am I, at this point in my life? You feel like you're kind of just charging in a certain direction for the first part of your life, and then suddenly it's like the brakes get put on, and you think, ugh! Firstly, you look back and you think, wow, there's this whole half a life behind me, hopefully, and then also like, ugh, am I happy with where I'm at and where I'm going? And I think that's a very interesting crossroads to be at. It's quite a sort of almost like a sort of stream of consciousness. What I wanted to try and capture was that sense that you get from, I think people get it from meditating, they get it probably from psychedelic drug taking, just that feeling of being lost in the moment and kind of exiting your kind of body, and you're just at one with the universe, a kind of cosmic consciousness or whatever people want to describe it as. And it happens in life, and it's like when it happens, you're almost unaware that you've shifted into that place. Well, just a journey towards this sense of kind of bliss and something kind of out of body and ethereal, And I wanted to kind of describe that with the music. I think the thing that got me sober actually was the realization I was going to lose my family, and then as time's gone on, they've become just more and more important and central to my existence, and well, certainly, or at least I've realised more and more how important and how central to my existence they are, and yeah, I just wanted to capture that in a song. Well, I think particularly in the music industry, there's this desire to sort of stay relevant or present or youthful, because so much of the industry is kind of propped up on that idea. And of course, this record is very much the antithesis of that. It's being kind of very honest that that doesn't, you can't stay in that place forever. And you have to acknowledge and accept that things move on and that you're no longer young kids anymore. You're no longer the ones with the dreams. And I think like there's a liberation in acknowledging all that stuff. So it's, I mean, there's plenty for me to say, and hopefully I can keep doing that and keep enjoying making music. But you know, I have to readjust my goals, or what, not even that. I just have to, readjust my perspective on what it means to be a songwriter or a singer these days. And also, handing over the joy of kind of growing and being young and doing exciting new things, handing that over to being a vicarious experience of seeing it through my kids. It was a very different sounding demo that we had for that song, and it ended up being more of a just kind of straight rock, like a kind of almost like a Beatles number, which I really love. Like, it's a bit of a call to arms. It's like, I think it's a song about wanting to make the most of the time that I have left in my life. And I don't mean that just in terms of like how long before I die, but I mean as in there's a lot of things that require my responsibility. And I think part of the thing is I look back at my life and I think maybe I wasn't as present as I should have been for a lot of things that happened. And so I think it's more about, for me, it's about like wanting to be really present and really enjoy each moment and savor it. Because I think when I was younger, and this is maybe the curse of being younger anyway, or certainly at the kind of that coupled with the sort of extreme success that we had with Keane, is that you just take it for granted. You don't realise how good it is, or how lucky you are, or how unique or rare it is to be in that position. But if it teaches you anything, it teaches you then, once you're beyond that point, it teaches you to, oh right, I'm really going to savour things, good things when they happen. The image I had was of the, you know, in the film Titanic, where they're, well, and the story of Titanic as well, is supposedly that the orchestra or the little band, the string section, kept playing as the ship went down. You know, I think one of the challenges of midlife for me has been, and I think this would apply to any kind of long-term relationship, the nature of it changes. And also after, you know, I've been with my wife for nearly 20 years, and you do wonder, is there something else out there? Is there, you know, something different? It's an inevitable fact of being with someone for so long. And it's seductive, and you know, and you think about, could I just tear it all down and start up with someone new while I'm still young enough to do that? That's a very real thought that definitely has preoccupied me at times. Yeah, so that's something that I've seen other people do. They've split up, and the fallout from it is really can be quite heavy, quite disastrous. I mean, it's not saying it's not the right, for some people it's definitely the right thing to do. So yeah, the song is about the changing nature of my relationship, hoping that, you know, it gets deeper and more profound in certain ways. That's the thing, like I think with life, all of the, you know, accumulation of material stuff, money or whatever it might be, what it all boils down to is that we're relational beings, aren't we? We need each other, and that notion of kind of having someone there as the ship goes down feels an important one to end on.